Today on The Rundown, we're unpacking two pivotal topics. First, the delicate line between responsibility and censorship on social media. Should platforms protect us from harmful content, or are they infringing on our freedoms? And second, we'll explore how technology is reshaping the media landscape, from the way we consume news to the powerful role that algorithms play in determining what we see. Join us as we discuss these game-changing trends with insights and opinions from our expert panel. Let's get going. Welcome to The Rundown. Hello, welcome back to The Rundown, everyone. David Paskin here. I'm so happy to be with you again. I'm stuck here late at night in my office, so I figured what better place to be than here on The Rundown with all of you. And I'm so excited to have this fantastic panel with me again. Hello to all of you. Hello, Tamara. How are you?
Hello, sir. I am great. Here
Keep
in
it
Los
busy?
Angeles at dinner time.
Working hard?
Trying to get busy.
Trying to get busy. We're busy getting busy. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Andy, how are you, sir?
I am doing excellent. It's Thursday, and I can't complain. Doing real good.
Yeah, well, we could complain, but I'm not sure who would listen. I have no complaints because, like I said, I think it was 2 weeks ago that Andy is the go-to guy. I had a question yesterday or 2 days ago. Pinged Andy. Within 30 seconds, had my answer. Thank you for that,
Hey,
sir.
I guess I don't sleep.
You don't, apparently. Lois, how are you?
Well, I'm fine, but I'm surprised and startled to be considered an expert when it comes to social media.
You
Because I
are-
don't use that stuff so much.
You know what's so funny, Lois, is that I think I'm very much like you. I don't get social media either. I think I'm just old, maybe. I don't know. But I love the technology stuff, but I haven't.
Yeah. I certainly enjoy all the communications that we have in the world these days. Oh my, it's so much better than when I was a kid. But I'm not keeping up with the changes, and things are changing so fast. I mean, I think, oh, Facebook, that's a new thing.
Yeah.
That's not new anymore. I mean, oh, TikTok.
It's not new. It's not cool.
No, it's
Yeah.
not new. So there's
Absolutely.
all these other things going on. Hopefully we'll get into some of that today and we can
Absolutely.
all learn.
Absolutely. Dave, I'm so happy to have you back this week. How are you, sir?
That's all right. I'm just sorry I can't use CompuServe anymore. It's the best way to do a social platform, but
CompuServe.
not anymore.
Is it really? Oh my goodness. There's a bunch of altacockers on this. I'm not even sure how to translate that, so I'm not going to. Bunch of old folks on this panel today, but and two youngins. The three. I'm not going to say who the two youngins are. I'm really, yeah.
I remember CompuServe, Delphi, and Prodigy. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think my first computer was an Atari 2000. Was that a computer? No, that was a game.
Yes.
That was a
It was
game.
a game.
No, was that a
That
game?
was a
It was a computer.
That was a computer. Yeah.
That was
I had a
before
com-
Commodore
real computer,
64.
Yeah.
Mhm. Pre-Mac.
Atari. Wow. All right. Let's talk about social media. Most people know already that Section 203 of the Communications Decency Act protects social media sites, platforms from harmful content that we or anyone may post on those sites. That is to say, they are not responsible for what I say on any given site. The problem that we're running into today is, well, then who is responsible? Because some of the content that is being posted on social media sites is very, very detrimental, painful, and sometimes downright dangerous. And I'm not just talking about what some people may call fake news, or I'm talking about ways in which things are posted that are literally putting people's lives at risk. So I wanted to start today with a question about trust. Do we trust social media companies, or should we trust social media companies to handle this challenge themselves? Or are they just the platform and they bear no responsibility? Like 230 says, they're not responsible. It's not their job. And then we'll eventually have to get to the next question, which is, if it is their job and if they are responsible, if we do trust them to do this work, then where's the line? Lois, take it.
So as always, I'm going to jump in and say, don't paint everyone with the same brush. So when you say social media, that's a whole big thing and a whole big place, and it isn't all the same. Do we trust social media? I mean, that's like saying, do I trust my government? The city government, maybe if I'm sitting in a council meeting, I'll trust it. But your city government, yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah,
let's not get it all.
No, you're right. You're right. And thank you for bringing that out, Lois. I think the reason that I did lump them together, it wasn't by accident. And that is, there are two reasons. First of all, because the government lumps them together. In Section 230, the government puts all of these into a particular bucket. And the second reason is because at the core of this challenge, at this question is, are you a platform or are you a content site? I'm not sure what the other word for that would be.
And the protection that these people are afforded comes from the rationale that the platforms are not publishers, but they're
That
just
was the word. Thank you.
Right.
a place where, it's like I have a bulletin board and anybody can stick up
Right.
anything they want. Okay, well, if I have that bulletin board and then I go around and I take down the things I don't like and I only leave up the things I like, now I am not just the bulletin board anymore. Now I am curating the things that go up. So I become a publisher when I am determining what people see on my platform. So I think the whole rationale of this is no longer true.
And half of the folks, when you take down those posts that you find offensive, will say, thank you for being responsible. And the other half will say, why are you censoring speech?
Yeah, and I think for me, on one side, I see, okay, I don't want the social media companies, whether it be X or Facebook or whatever, I don't necessarily want them censoring content and deciding what is and what isn't good to have up there. But at the same time, me as a dad also don't want my kids to just see any random thing on the internet. And I also realize that's my responsibility to be a parent and not necessarily just be like, here's social media. But so I see both sides of this coin.
Yeah, well,
I do too.
I would just throw out there that as a dad, I don't understand, and I'm kind of like I love technology. I'm kind of up on it. I don't understand how TikTok works or how Snapchat works. Like genuinely, and I'm not trying to make fun of myself. I'm not qualified to protect my children from content on there because
Right.
I don't understand the platform and how it and telling me that, well, you know, it's my responsibility as a parent to understand all, as Lois, as you said, there's so many different platforms. I don't know how that can fall on me.
But
Right?
it does,
Yeah.
though.
Go ahead, Tamara.
It does, though, because we all sign the thing that we don't pay attention to, which is the terms of service.
Right.
And we agree that 13-year-olds are not, or below, are not going to be on the service, on the site, but our kids are on it. So I think that I can see both sides. I know that we would like there to be more, more kind of control, I guess, or moderation. But at the same time, who's moderating? Who gets to make that decision? And do I agree that that person is going to be the curator of what I believe in and what I want to see? I do think we have to take more personal responsibility. We have to read the terms of service. I did a thing with high schoolers because someone had rewritten the terms of service for Instagram into kid-friendly language. And when you read the terms of service in kid-friendly language, it basically says everything that you put up there, they own. Of course, you own it, but they can make money off of it, which you would never agree to, right? But we all do. So I think that there is a point where we have to, one, understand what our kids have and what we have, and start making decisions based on and understand that what you see is not true. You have to actually, even the people you like have to be checked, and there is some personal responsibility. I do think that I understand both sides too. The other side of it is, how would they go about doing that? That isn't how the apparatus was ever set up, right? So that's the other side of it. Is
you
like,
mean
what would that look like?
moderate?
Yeah, what would that look like?
Right.
Because right now they truly are. They are providing the hardware and the technical infrastructure, but there's no editors on staff. Like, that is a whole other thing. If you're going to be producing something and editing your content and doing all of that, they've done some of it, right? Because big corporations like Disney are on every single day looking for their content that is being used maliciously. And so they have built into things like YouTube things that can check for content violations and rights violations. So there's a certain amount of censorship that we do have, or
Right,
oversight that we can have.
I
if
was
it's
just going to
important
say
us.
that, right? They're able to take down content that I stole from
Right.
someone else, but they're not able to take down content that I pulled out of my tuchus. Sorry, right? That I just made up, or that's BS. That, like, I mean, there is some censorship.
Is it that they can't, or that they haven't been
maybe
able
they're
to up to
choosing
now,
not to.
right? Because now with AI, we certainly probably could, right? You could build something that parses it through AI that says,
Nope.
is this accurate or
Nope.
whatever?
No,
Sorry.
Dave?
No.
Why not?
Not happening. We're missing something here, and I got to bring it up. And you talk about the word responsibility. My son is a kid from the internet age. Was using a mouse at 4 years old and really good at it, good enough to be a competitive gamer, makes his own money doing it, and he's known the worldwide. He's number 17 in the world in his particular game. I made sure that I talked to him all the time
Can we just? I'm sorry.
about what he's doing.
Wait, hold on. Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Now,
Cool.
because I'm in media and I study media and I try to understand all
that's
the media.
really impressive for your son. Kudos to your son. That's wild.
Yeah. And I'll take credit because I talked to him about what he's doing.
Absolutely.
A lot of people just want to offload this.
Yeah.
They want the AI to do it. They want somebody to moderate. They want somebody to edit. We let the newspapers sell ads to us so that we could get a little smattering of news, and we understood the trade-off. As has been pointed out, we're the content.
Mhm.
We're not the subscribers, the consumers. The whole point is to put my ideas out there. And that's the opportunity their system gives me. But a kid doesn't know that the obligation he has putting his stuff out there is an important thing to understand. Teachers are trying to teach kids how to behave well in all kinds of situations, but they don't have the means to get a kid to understand what he's doing when he's on the net. And my son used to put the weirdest things on his computer. And one day, surveying his stuff, I said, "You can't have that on the computer. It's illegal." And he went, "Oh, is it?" And I says, "Yeah, you can go to jail for that." And he goes, "Oh, okay, I'll stop." And he knew that if he wants to look at it, that's great, but he's not allowed to have it on his computer or he goes to jail. And this is a rule in Canada. I don't know if you know this, but I could go to jail if I don't protect my kid from the things he's looking at.
Right.
And if he's trading in pictures that he shouldn't be, I can go to jail for not overseeing my child. And I think this is part of what's missing. We
Absolutely.
think that somebody out there has made Facebook, but Facebook is a compendium of everyone's contribution. And the same for, I mean, it goes back to MySpace, and I'm going to go back to CompuServe. They just put out a thing where you can plug your content onto it. And then I'm responsible for that content, nobody else. If I can be anonymous, that's a problem.
Well,
230 doesn't
I agree
address
with that, though.
anonymity. So,
That's
Super smart parents are letting their kids go online because their friends are online. When I taught elementary school, like 15 years ago, first graders had cell phones, right? So
yeah,
I do think that it does come down to personal responsibility, and some of that responsibility is for us to understand before we can teach young people
that's
about
where
it,
we're at.
what it
Yes.
is, because
Mhm.
I think it's become comfortable for everybody, and it's now really providing a lot of mental health issues. And now we're kind of like, wow, kids shouldn't be on the internet. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they shouldn't. Like,
Maybe my wife shouldn't be on the internet. I mean, this is,
Right.
an important question, right? She doesn't understand what's going on, and I have to sit down and do the whole whiteboard thing
Yeah,
for
see,
her to
I'm sorry,
explain.
but I don't,
She's
Lois, I
signing
want,
up to Blue Sky, and Blue Sky is a whole new platform, and she thinks
Yep.
it's all different.
right.
Well, it's the same.
Let me get Lois in. Wait, Lois, you muted
Yeah.
yourself. I just want to say though, I don't think saying people shouldn't be on the internet is the answer. Because that's never going to happen. Lois, go ahead.
so you say that we can't have someone making choices about what's on there and what's not. They're doing it already. They are suppressing certain ideas. They are suppressing certain opinions or cultural norms or whatever. So one of the things that we can do
Wait a
is we
second,
can,
Lois.
what?
I want to push back on you with what you said before. You said they are suppressing. Who's the they?
Some social media platforms are removing and restricting postings that they don't like. And I've seen this.
What's
I've watched this happening.
when you say they don't like?
I don't know what their criteria is. I
Okay.
know the people that they have said, "Oh no, you can't say that. Delete, 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 delete."
Okay.
Now,
And that is an
so
issue,
they
right?
can do that.
Right.
Now, I think that the thing to do is to find a social media site that you trust, that is shares the value of being good for kids or whatever, and hang out there instead of hanging out on a place with something that's going to be deleting your friends. Now, that gets us into a problem, which is all the different things, and this group is over here and this group is over here, and they only hear their stuff and they only hear their stuff. We fragment when we do that, but I don't see any way to not be fragmented and function well on the internet.
Andy, go
We
ahead.
have to have more digital literacy across the board
Let me-
continually.
Let me let Andy jump in. Sorry, go ahead.
So I find it interesting though, because we say they can remove content, and they do. But what is frustrating to me is I have friends that get cloned. I'm going to call it cloned, not hacked. And I report that as a fake account. And I get, well, that didn't violate our terms of service.
Right.
We're not going to delete that account. And so it really is frustrating, because at one point you have content that's being removed that shouldn't be removed just because they don't like it. I'm going to say they. But at the same time, if somebody is a fake account that I know is fake and they're not going to remove it, that's frustrating.
Andy, is there, and again, this is just my ignorance of social media. When we talk about them deleting posts, or just stick with deleting posts, is that there isn't a human being, my brother works at at Google. And my kids, when they were younger, thought that he was the guy answering people's search questions, right? There aren't people taking those posts down, right? That's algorithmic.
No, I think it's algorithmic that they just don't show it. And again, I don't know how to prove that. I mean, just based on what I've heard people say, and I I've never had something that of mine that's been taken down. So I don't know that I can say that they take it down. I was just quoting in what Lois had said
Sure.
that they do, but it's frustrating to me that when I think that there should be something that's taken down because it's clearly a clone of somebody else's account. It's not a real account. It's trying to get people to accept friends so they can spam them. And I know that, and I report that, and they come back saying it doesn't violate their terms of service.
Right.
Yeah, it's a reporting thing.
Right. I have
most
heard
of the platforms have a reporting channel, and if it is loud and they make a noise about David making comments about things he shouldn't, well, then the community speaks, and then they have to respond to that. And if the community doesn't speak, then the guy gets away with it.
I have heard on some of these sites that they won't people in I guess podcast settings like this or conversations like this won't use words like kill. Instead, I hear them say they unalived someone.
Right. It's
Because
become
they
in our
know
lexicon.
that the algorithm, right, will ding you if you say certain words, or they'll
Sure.
certain words are intentionally misspelled because people are and that brings us to again another problem, which is if we do ask anyone to regulate or to protect, whatever word you want to choose, aren't we all just going to find ways around those protections?
Yeah.
I mean, kids are
it's the same
smarter
as-
than we are.
Back in Napster days when you had songs that were specifically misspelled so that way they didn't get taken down, but you knew what you were
Right.
looking for. And if you knew what you were
Right.
looking for, you'd find it.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm still not convinced that we have we're not going to solve it in the next 10 minutes, but I'm not
No.
convinced that so far what I've heard is parents need to be more responsible, that we need to learn about these, or we have to maybe find the right one for us, the one that feels good for us.
Mhm.
This is so ubiquitous. These are so,
The other-
and not only that, sorry, Dave, one more thing. They have become so vital for the transmission of information. I don't go to CNN or Fox News or MSN. I don't go to their websites. I go to Twitter or I go to Facebook to get my news. Now, my kids go to TikTok. That's where they get their news from, which again, I don't understand. But
There's
Yeah, I
another
have a question.
aspect to this that needs to be addressed, and that's the surfacing of things. We call it the algorithm, but it's generally a thing that is looking at what everyone's talking about. And Google has that list of what's the most popular thing every day. And the algorithm takes the top thing and tries to show it to everybody. And you have control over where you want stuff that you want to see or not see. And then you put it in your profile that these are the things I don't want to see. And any platform that's not doing that isn't worth its salt.
wait,
You
we
can
do
go in
have
and say-
control?
Yes, you can go into most settings and say, I don't want to hear anything about this, that, or the other.
And are
So-
we sure that it listens?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I've never been banned, and I've said a lot of fun things on the net. And I've been around long enough to be on all the platforms. I also conduct experiments on the platforms. So I won't go into detail, but in 1911, I pretended to be Marshall McLuhan, and people thought he was still alive, and they talked to me as if he was. And I did that on Facebook to find out, would Facebook really know that I'm not Marshall McLuhan, and because he was dead? And what would it give me if it was giving a dead person advice as to what to be interested in? And I joined a club of people talking about his writings, and as I'm fully versed on his writings, I commented as though I was in the discussion with a bunch of students, and they were learning about my books. And it was a fun thing to do. I knew I was going to stop in 2011 because that was his 100th birthday. But
You know
in
that
the
that's
3 years
exactly
that I
what
did that.
you know that's what folks are using AI for nowadays.
Yeah.
That you can have
AI is just
conversation, like, you know,
an amplification of the same thing.
You
Yeah.
say to ChatGPT,
Yeah.
you know, respond to this in the voice of the
Of
author.
Marshall McLuhan.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, you are ahead
You
of your
can do
time,
that.
Dave.
Yeah, way ahead. So now I'm experimenting with Medium and I'm having a good time there because the algorithm is actually working for me. And I've been on Twitter and I did that experiment and I learned, oh, yeah, that's how it's advertising driven. And that to me is where the regulation comes in. We don't have to regulate the content, we have to regulate the use of the data. And the use of the data gives me ownership of the information I'm putting on any of these platforms. I should be able to withdraw it or prevent someone from using it against me. And that, I think, is what's missing. And actually, Tim Cook's talked about this in an international forum about had the right to remove, the right to control it, and when it gets resold, that is, when Twitter gets bought by Elon Musk, can I actually say he can't have my stuff? All the stuff I had on Twitter, do I still have control? No, I don't. And if I get regulation that says when people put stuff on the net, they have the right to have it not go to the next owner because the data is more important than what you said. Your activities on the net, your activities shopping, all that stuff is accumulated in a profile, we all know, and the advertisers buy that information. That's where the money comes from. And it's always about where the money is. So when you have a platform and it's advertising supported, then you're the content and you're the product and you have to be responsible with your stuff. But there should be a way, as we do with most things, if you own a car, you're responsible for what people do with your car, whether you're in it or not. And that regulation should be applied to these organizations that say, it's Dave's information, we're just borrowing it. I still own it and I should be able to exercise ownership, but we don't have any mechanisms for that. And that can still leave the stockholders to make their fortunes and for the advertisers to still get access to Dave, but there's a limit to what he'll play along with when you move it to another platform. So that's all I say. And the legacy of stuff, if you look me up on the net, apparently I'm a mathematician. Because there's more Dave Troutman's mathematicians than there are media specialists. So I'm just saying there's other guys out there that are real, but they appear to be me.
Even if we had such a law, people don't read the disclaimers and the agreements and the, okay, I guess I don't have to give you my stuff, but you can have it and you can pass it on and you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, it would be nice to have such a law, but I don't think it would make that much of a difference.
But if you understand the notion of engagement, right, the mechanism for getting people engaged, then you look at the EULA and say, I'm not going to participate. But
I do think
we all say we just want to play along. Yeah.
But if you don't participate, that means you're not on the platform. That means you can't do whatever the platform is offering you.
Right.
I do think that is where we have to like focus laws. We have to focus them on making sure the terms of service are clear to the average user and not to someone who's a lawyer. And so I think that that's the part where we have to be.
No, who's reading the terms? I don't care if they're written in verse. I'm not interested in the terms of service. And by the way, Dave, fine. I'm your product. So like, I don't quite, I'm a little bit of a Jeff Jarvis on this. I think, you know, I would much rather have these companies give me ads that are relevant because they're tracking me than things that are completely irrelevant. Like it doesn't bother me that I'm selling myself.
Yeah, but
I don't want terms of service. I want to sign up and I want to use the service.
But here's where it's going to bother you, Dave. And this is the part where I think that if someone took this broadcast down and you went to go and say, hey, why was my broadcast taken down? Many times you won't get a clear answer as to what you did wrong. You won't know what it is. And that part of it, I think we can have more clarity about. So it's like the terms of service don't matter until they do. So right now they haven't mattered to you. I agree with you. If you agree to be on the internet, you agree to have all kinds of things coming at you and you don't get to complain. I actually like that. I frankly like the fact that I'm targeted with ads that I would buy versus ads that I don't care about. I'm fine with that. But I do think that there's some clarity that can happen around what everything means so that and so that it's not kind of like, oh, well, an algorithm tagged you, but a human can't even know why that, like, you don't know why
Right.
that was. You don't know how to solve that problem. And that's where they're like, oh, well, it was just, it violated our terms of service, or it didn't violate our terms of service. Why copying someone's information doesn't violate terms of service? It should. It should violate the terms of service if you steal someone's content. Period.
Right. Andy, I
That
stepped all
that's
over you before. Did you want to jump in?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Clarity is always good. And by the way, there's a special coming out on Netflix about, I forget what it's called, the shopping conspiracy, I think it is. It looks really interesting. Coming out right, I think it's actually coming out right before Black Friday, which is interesting.
Oh, cool.
But it's about how all of these, how the Amazons of the world and all these huge companies, how they use social media and just media in general to get us to keep buying stuff. Just buy. And they're so good at it.
My bank account says they're successful.
Yeah, but exactly.
That has been going on with every.
Of course, right? No, that's not new. Absolutely.
Ads in the newspaper, radio things.
But here's the difference, Lois. And this
on to who is a personality to, in the course of their show, not as an ad, go, oh, and this product really worked for me. I mean, this has been going on forever.
I just watched. Sorry.
The difference now is that they're ads that are personalized to you. Like they know that you want this hair shampoo. Like, I mean, it's interesting now. It's just a whole different world we live in.
And this is why I think this question of responsibility versus censorship has been thrust upon social media and not thrust upon newspapers. We may expect it from newspapers, but it's not really an issue. Like, I mean, the Inquirer sells millions of copies, and no one worries about whether they're, that particular
accurate,
right, is accurate. But the reach of social media is so beyond anything that we've ever had before.
But at the same time, though, David, I think that if, let's say, the Inquirer posted something that was completely slanderous, and I was a celebrity or something, I could go back and sue them. So there is some responsibility there for even the Inquirer in print, that if they say something against me that's slanderous, I can go and I can sue them.
Yes, if you know that they said something about you. And that to me is the difference, is that if someone says something in a newspaper that's slanderous, I may hear it, I may take action against them, but I don't necessarily have to worry about 1 billion people on the planet getting that information, and that information necessarily being incredibly harmful to millions upon millions of people. I may be underplaying the power of traditional media, and we can get to that in the second half an hour, but it just feels like a different animal. Sorry, Lois.
How do we decide where the harm is?
Right.
It's speed. Speed is what's going on. If it took a week for this piece of information to be disseminated amongst your neighbors, okay, well, then you can talk to people and whatever. But it's taking 30 seconds for this piece of misinformation to be posted, reposted, and zoom, gone viral.
You're right.
And there's no way you can take back anything once it's been said.
Who's responsible for that? Is Facebook responsible because they let it go?
No.
I mean,
Facebook isn't responsible. I don't think there is any responsibility at all.
Oh, see, but that's a problem. I mean, how can we possibly live in an environment in which the sites that we trust for news and connection and
I think you misplaced your trust.
Yeah, I was
I'm
like, why do you
but you
trust
just
those
misplaced
sites?
your trust. Why would you trust Twitter to tell you anything like what the sky's color is? I mean, I don't go there for that, and I go to legitimate sources. But those sources are usually one-to-one. I go find the person who knows what that is, and then I get the answer from them. But I have an opportunity to do that now on the internet, which I never had when my news came through controlled media and other large enterprise.
And what
the ownership issue is very important here. Yeah.
One of the things
what Tamara was talking about when she said literacy, internet literacy, I think that's one of the things we should talk about at some point is there's so much out there. And growing up, I was trusting. I, assumed that
Absolutely.
everybody was telling the truth. And
Sure.
if they lied, well then, oh, well, I can't trust that person anymore. But that
Exactly.
isn't the way people growing up now. Kids growing up now
They could be.
don't know with the general culture, they don't know that there is a trustworthiness that's possible. It's like
I think they learn it on the playground. They learn it the same way we did on the playground. They're doing stuff with kids, and they do a trick on somebody, and now you can't trust that guy anymore. Even in my neighborhood, there were a half a dozen boys, and there was one boy who was always playing tricks on everybody and cheating and stealing and doing that stuff, and they shunned him eventually. But it takes a while for them to learn.
Let me
And
offer an
schools
analogy.
do media literacy. I think some of it is the same thing that David feels about being targeted with ads. There's a certain amount of, yeah, I know it's not trustworthy. That's okay.
Mhm.
And
But
then is it?
But
Right?
let me offer an analogy, and maybe this is a terrible analogy, and please pile on
It's a
if I'm
terrible
wrong.
analogy,
Thank
Dave.
you. I
I'll tell you
appreciate that,
Amazing.
Dave.
Okay.
Here's my analogy. When I was growing up, we didn't have the internet. That's how old I am. And we actually went to the library, which was the repository of human knowledge. And when I needed to find something in the library, I'd go to the librarian, or I'd go to one of the other tools that was provided, and I trusted the card catalog, or I trusted the librarian, the person who was employed by that platform that housed information. And so I don't think that it's out of left field for me to want to trust the people who are employed by the platforms that house the world's information to guide me in the right direction, which brings me back to, shouldn't
Who are the
there be
shareholders?
some
Right.
sense of responsibility on these platforms?
Who are the shareholders of that library?
Right.
In your library, if you lived in a certain area, the city council would have said, "Oh, you can't put this book, this book, this book, this," and taken out certain things so that you wouldn't see it because it was dangerous for you. In
Right.
the modern age, when you're out on social media, it's, I think, less something's been taken away than lies have been propagated, put out, and they're on the shelf with all the other books, and the librarian isn't saying, "Oh, by the way, that's a lie."
Mhm.
But David, using your analogy, when we went to the library, we had a librarian who taught us how to use the library. So you weren't just released into the library. You understood how the Dewey Decimal
Grabbing
System
books
worked.
at
That's
You
a good point.
understood how microfiche
Yeah.
worked. You knew
That's a good
how
point.
to evaluate sources. So that's the
Yeah.
same thing that has to happen now. We have to say right now what's happening is things are happening so quickly. Millions and millions of data, pieces of information are coming at kids and at adults too, because this is not a kid problem, it's an adult problem as well. And
Mhm.
we have to really evaluate how we're going to navigate all of these things that are coming at us. You did learn how to do that. You started in first grade, second grade, third grade. You went to the library every single week and someone taught you how to use that repository of information. And if it wasn't there,
Sure.
how to go higher up.
Yeah. Andy, go ahead.
Sure, but how are kids learning that today? Though, I mean, parents. I mean, yes. Again, I'm teaching my kids that. I've got kids that are 18 down to 8, and I'm trying to be an example to them because I've known that my whole life. I've grown up with the library and the all of the stuff and the skills to deduct what is and what isn't true.
Mhm.
But I think that we're losing that as a society again because of Facebook. Because I've seen so many people on Facebook say things that you're just like, have you even done research on that? Or are you just taking the fact that all the people on your Facebook are saying that because your algorithm is showing what you want to see? And so it's a slippery slope.
When
there.
someone that
Can
I
I
And the
tell a
love,
trouble is-
story?
when someone that I love shares something that I know is garbage, I get so frustrated. Like, can you not just take 2 seconds to research this before you put it out there and share it? I would say one other thing about that just drives me crazy, and it goes a little bit to the education piece, and that is that very often my wife, who I love, hi honey, will ask me a question. I don't know the answer. What I do know how to do is Google it properly. And knowing how to Google, it's a little bit like knowing how to craft a prompt, right? That we used to, knowing how to ask good questions on the internet, to me, is half the battle. And so teaching children how to, it's not just navigate, but how do you interact with, how do you live with this breathing, living body of information that's always morphing and changing, and morphs and changes in response to how you interact with it.
Yes.
And also, how do you keep up with creating that curriculum? Curriculum takes so long to be approved and go through the system. And by that point, it's already changed. There are, to be fair to educators out there are educators who are daily having these conversations with students who are on TikTok in their classroom. They are being they're fighting the social media in their classrooms to even get these things through. So to say that like education has failed students, when there are many people who are trying, but again, what are you teaching that isn't shifting in the 2000% that it changes every month? And how do you do that?
Don't hear me say that. I wasn't saying
No, I know.
that the teachers are failing us. That's not that all what I was saying.
No, of course.
I don't think anybody's saying that. No.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure we're not misconstrued that we are when there is media literacy happening in classrooms, but it's also happening at a pace that just does not keep up with what is current.
All right.
One day I had 3 grade 7s in the back seat, and we were coming back from a kid's birthday party, and we're on this little highway, and one guy is saying, you know what I'd like is to have a way of having all of what I'm supposed to learn in school on a watch. And I listen to these guys agree to each other. Oh, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be like the encyclopedia, right? It'll have everything we need to know. And then I just quietly said from the front seat, I said, but how would you determine if what you're looking at is correct? And dead silence. And they didn't have the answer. And then I said, that's why you go to school, is you learn to determine what's real, what's not, how to get it, who's lying, who's not, and where the real information is. If you go to the library, that's where the real. And then they woke up and thought, gee, Dave's not such a bad guy after all.
So one of the things that you can do, that your wife can do, David, is ask someone who
don't pick
knows.
on my wife. I'm going to get in so much trouble.
No. She's very smart.
She is.
She asks you because you have knowledge and experience on how to get information that is trustworthy. And I think that that's a lot of what you find on the internet is you see something or hear something or read something and go, oh, that's how that works. That makes sense. I think I will read this person's podcast or I will listen to this person's show. And as long as it is making sense to you, then, you decide to trust them.
Okay. So
maybe that's our solution, is find a place that makes sense to you and then trust it.
So that's where we're going now. So let me bring us there. Before we do that, I just want to share that Brody, who's watching us, thank you, Brody, for sharing this, that in 2021, Facebook boasted its ability to police content by taking down 1.7 billion fake accounts. That's incredible.
Right.
3.8 million drug and firearms sales posts and 7.1 million terrorism-related sites. That's what Facebook. So Facebook is claiming, to a certain extent, that it is doing this work. But I want to pick up, Lois, on what you just said, because the second thing that we wanted to talk about tonight was the changing media landscape and how technology has changed that. And this really became powerful to me when I heard a stat. I don't know that I have it. I think I have it here. When President-elect Trump in October went on Joe Rogan's podcast, 3 hours, unscripted, he had 26 million views in 24 hours. Any candidate who went on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News would maybe have had a couple million in the same amount of time.
They'll only have 6 minutes.
and they'll only have
Right.
6 minutes. The power has really shifted, I think, and we saw it in stark terms in this past election, that we don't have the NBC, CBS, ABC. This we've known for a long time, but even the cable news places, old media has really given way in large part to social media, to podcasting, to micro influencers. And so, Lois, when you were talking about find the person that you trust, right?
Yeah.
That raises another question for me, which is the great thing about the internet is the way it has democratized the sharing of information. I'm a dummy, and I could start a show. And who knows if I'll get
You
26
should start a
million.
show.
You should do that.
Yeah, maybe. Right now,
We should
I
call
don't
it
have
something
26
like,
million
I don't
views
know,
yet,
the
but who the
rundown?
hell knows, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. What gives me the authority to be an influencer to anyone? How do we?
Advertising.
The people who choose to follow you, the people
Right.
who listen to you and go, oh, that guy is making sense. Now let me see. Is this true? Yeah, that's true. Oh, okay. I think I'll believe
No.
him.
See, you, Lois, you did a step that they don't do. The step you did that they
Stop
don't
with the
do is,
they business.
is this true? Because what we see is, and I'm not, look, God bless Joe Rogan. I don't know anything. I've never listened to him, so I don't know anything about his podcast. But my gut is that podcasters, by and large, especially commentators, political commentators, they say what they believe. They don't. Their job is not to report news. Their job
That's
isn't to
right.
tell the truth. It's to say what they believe.
So if you believe the same thing that I believe,
Right.
then I'm going to trust you. Now, I said, he said, this all sounded real good. And I checked this one fact out. Now, that's because I'm me. I check things out. And that's who I'm going to follow, are people that I can check out. And yep.
Right. And
that's-
I guess my point is that's new. That process is new, because I used to turn on Dan Rather and I just trusted him to tell me the truth. I never checked what he said.
Mhm.
Old media, we trusted. We didn't
Well-
have to do that work.
But other people were
There's
checking.
also
Other
less.
people were checking what he said. If he said, the sky is pink, and the newspaper said the sky is blue, well, then there's a conflict there.
Well, but that's exactly my point, is that and that now there is a conflict, right? There's a conflict between this podcaster and this podcaster, but there's no checking. It's just,
But you
as
didn't
you
just
said,
watch.
who follows who.
You didn't just watch the news. There were only 3 to 4 stations of news. So you watched the news, and then all of your friends and people you did trust watched the same program and said, "Hey, did you hear that?" And you had real conversations with people you knew. And so that's where your solidification of trust came from. It wasn't
Mm.
just you in a room. And that has shifted, because we're so connected in different ways. I mean, I didn't know any of you before this, right? And
We're
so,
still not connected.
right, but we're making assumptions of trust in very different ways now than we used to do, because we used to have places where we found community and places where we
That's the
solidified
key
our
word there.
value.
Yeah.
So that's what's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about
the internet is reducing our community
Mhm.
and doesn't allow us to go face to face with people, and that's a tricky.
I'm not sure I
tricky
buy
bridge.
that at
It
all.
expands the
Andy,
community.
I'm stepping on you again, but I don't buy that at
Yeah.
all, Dave. I am face to face with you right now.
No, you're not.
I absolutely am. I
No.
spent the first 2 years of the pandemic telling people to stop using the word virtual meetings. Right? There's no such thing as virtual versus in person. There's nothing virtual about this. This is as real as it gets for me.
No, it isn't.
I disagree.
But you
Well,
also
that's-
don't know. I mean, what you're seeing right now is you're seeing this little square of me You're seeing this little window into my office. You're not seeing what happens when I go downstairs and talk to my kids. Like, whereas when I was growing up, my friends were my friends. They saw me in real life. They came to my house.
Right.
And now I've got 750 friends or something on Facebook that some of those people I've never actually met. I mean, in real life, like, David, we're friends on Facebook, but have I ever? I mean, I've never been to your house. I mean, there is that, like, I can show you what I want to show you within this screen. So I see what you're saying, but I also want to disagree with that.
Yeah. I have a full community in my own life, and it's a whole lot of people. And I have some responsibilities to those people, but I don't have any responsibility to you guys. And that's
Well,
what separates me from
But
community.
I do
right?
agree. I agree, David, that real relationships can form in digital spaces, which is something we were told could never happen. And in fact, it can happen. So there are people that I've met in digital spaces that became, and this isn't even just post 2020. I mean, I remember being on IRCs, and then my very best friend and I met there. We did not meet in a personal space, but then we became good friends. So I think that those things can happen. But even within a digital space, you still meeting people in digital spaces, you learn who you trust, and then you discuss things. You say, "Hey, did you see so and so?" And with that person, then you're doing a version of what we were doing in real life, right? So I agree with you that there's a piece of that is true, but there's also a lot of viewing of things that have no reciprocal. They're just images coming at you. They're just things that were created that you may or may not agree with. But after a while, the truth is you flip past things so quickly, the algorithm pretty much starts narrowing your focus. And amazingly, the people who are presented to you are people who agree with you
Ought not
and
to
who
be,
you
yeah.
agree with.
You know, I would. I'm not sure I fully agree with that. I'm thinking. Maybe this is just me, but you know, I'm thinking about TV series that I've watched, or movies that I've seen. When it's not really movies, it's really TV episodes where I have felt strong connections to those characters, like really powerful connections to those characters, such that I've been emotionally moved by that. I think about influencers today, like Joe Rogan, for example. People feel powerful connections to him. They feel like they know him. Maybe they only see what's in the box, but they feel like that's why they keep going back to him. You know, Marquez Brownlee did a really interesting video the other day about his new the new way that he wants to be exploring video, and the video was basically he wants to explore doing more with his phone and like a GoPro. It wasn't a GoPro, but an action camera, because his argument was what people are looking for nowadays in media is authenticity. They don't want they don't want this. They don't want the fancy, you know, with the background. They just want an authentic conversation, someone that they feel they can connect to and trust. So we can debate about how real something is, but these micro influencers, these political commentators, they have made connections with millions of people that are far more powerful than what traditional news outlets are able to do.
David,
Uh-oh.
you're my friend.
Uh-oh. I
have
feel
not
like there's an
ever met you.
intervention coming here, Lois, the way you started that.
No. But let us keep in mind that different people have different personal and social means of expression. There are people who are so shy that they wouldn't even talk to someone in public. And there are other people who want to get on that stage and harangue the audience, you know. There are preachers that have thousands of people in one service. Right. And then there are preachers who talk one-on-one with congregants, and that's how they do it. So whether it is face-to-face physical, I can actually touch you, like Dave, or whether it's you can be my friend even if I only see you on the screen, like me, it it works for us however it works for us. So let's get back to talking about the social media, because there is so much still to talk about that we haven't even touched.
All right, touch.
Okay, if all of us can agree that X is a bad thing. No, I shouldn't say X,
Yeah,
because
don't
that's
say
an
X.
actual,
You can't do that.
Y. That Y is, no, there's a real one too. Let's say the ABC. No, I can't. Pick one that doesn't happen to be good.
Pick
Okay,
a letter.
elephant.
Pick a letter.
Elephant.
Any
Okay.
letter.
So the elephant platform it exists. No, that's not what I want. Okay, what I want to say is, if we can all agree that it's a bad thing to show child abuse, and we can all agree with that. Certainly, we can all agree with that. Does everybody in the world agree with that?
It doesn't matter.
Unfortunately,
It doesn't
not.
matter. It doesn't matter.
If
My
They
job-
put kids in minds
Our
anymore.
job is not to make everyone happy.
But yeah, I'm not saying it is to make everyone happy. But what I'm saying is, at what point does the agreement of this community or the owners of that platform give them the right to say, you can't talk about this subject, you can't say that word? At what point? I mean, it's like from, oh, we all agree that's bad, to, that's not so bad.
And you can't even say what's legal versus not legal, because what's legal in the US maybe not legal somewhere else. So you can't even say what legal versus not legal.
That's true.
That's
But
true.
that speaks to the trickiness of the globalization, right? There's so many
Right.
great things about it. I don't want to, I have thrived in COVID. I have met better, communities where I was able to be more connected, was able to connect back to the communities I was in before. So for me, this has been a thriving time in my life where I've been able to, find the right groups of people that, that also enjoy the things that I enjoy. All of that, those things are good. But with globalization, we do have, that's been kind of the erosion of larger media, if we want to segue back to that topic, is that we no longer have one section of that is creating. We're all creators now. All of us are consumers and the product at the same time. So we're creators and consumers. So I think that that's tricky. There are really good things about it, and then there are really negative things about it. And we're trying to pinpoint where that should begin and end. The major platforms have done exactly what Facebook has done, and they've said we're going to do it the best we can do to do this. Can they do better? I don't know. That's probably subjective in a lot of ways. But we can do some of those things and say these are okay things on our platform and these are not okay things. But at what point, for us, do we want that? Where does that, who decides that, who arbitrates that, and how do you do that globally? I think
I'll
that's
tell
the
you who
tricky
does,
part
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's pretty easy to figure out why some things are in decline and other things are in a surge. It's where the advertising money goes.
Right.
Joe Rogan is a $100 million man because he attracts advertising, and the kind of customers that listen to his show are the people who have money in their hand and they're willing to spend it. The New York Times doesn't have that same audience, and my local newspaper shrank and died because classified ads went to the internet. That was the profit center, not the car ads or the big splashy ads for the Save-On and all the rest. No, it was classifieds that were a cash cow. And then when it went to the internet, they didn't find anything else that. And then the advertisers said, well, nobody's buying your newspaper. I'm not putting stuff in there. I'm going to start putting stuff on websites. And we got banner ads, right? And it all tumbles into, where are we now? We're into long form content that allows a deeper engagement with an audience that is a target for advertising. And we're all pretending it's all about us, but it isn't. Joe Rogan's big because he gets advertising, and we used to have that on radio. Talk radio was more popular than music radio because advertisers saw a chance to get to more people.
And yet what's interesting is that overall, podcast advertising has actually declined as I
It's
understand it.
declining, yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
There are still some folks that, I mean, I don't know, Andy, if you do any ads on your podcast, but there are some folks that are still making money. But
I
Mm-hmm.
do, but it's a local business that I trust, that trusts me, that knows me.
There you go.
right, and when you look at networks like the
local
Twit
newspaper.
network, right? That's Leo and his ads. I actually love his ads. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how much of the stuff that he's been peddling that I've purchased because, like you said, because I trust him and I know that he trusts these brands. What is it? There's a name for that. I don't remember what it's called. In program advertise or something where the host
It's-
themselves.
Host read ad, host endorsed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I think that another important question for me, and Dave, this goes back to what you just said, is have traditional media companies, let me move it ahead. Are we shifting and being as nimble as we need to be to keep up with the changing nature of ad spend and advertising, things like that? Those newspapers that have gone to the wayside, they didn't have to. They could have shifted. No,
No, they couldn't. They couldn't do
really. I don't know.
It was a labor issue. How much does it cost to
Right.
have a guy in Kabul telling us what's going on? And it costs a heck of a lot. How much did it cost for the television news guys to have a satellite truck in London, England?
No,
It's a daily cost, right?
Sorry, I think
the advertising left it, and then
No,
they
but
had
what
to
I'm
shrink
saying
to it.
is the companies could be responsive to the changing nature of where the money is, right? They could have built themselves something online.
And some of them,
No,
some
they
of
were-
them did.
It's
Some
the
of
some
sunk
of them
cost
did, right.
question. No, there's a sunk cost, and they have to support that. The
if you
shareholders and
switch-
stakeholders want that.
if you switch from print to the internet, then
Yep.
you have advertising capabilities that you don't have if you're doing print. It changes your company.
Right.
But it could happen.
And look, bottom line, we don't have to like the way it turned out, but Donald Trump did that. His social media game, his new media game was
Mhm.
way better than Kamala Harris's. It just was.
And he made the major newspapers a lot of money in 2016 by saying a stupid thing every day and giving
Right.
them a free
and,
headline.
and you know what?
And he didn't have to buy an ad for his whole campaign.
That's what it is, right? The free media that he was able, the Democrats spent $1 billion on media, on ads,
to the
Well,
wrong
and he had his own
audience. Yeah.
platform.
and he has his own
Well, he has
platform.
done-
Right.
yeah,
Right.
Not a very successful one and not very big audience, but at the
But
same
they're
time,
his audience. They're exactly
he
who
is
would show
able,
up.
like
Right.
like Joe Rogan, to be controversial and get eyeballs and ears.
Mhm.
That's how you do it. Lots of people are doing that, and sure, more power to them if they can get a lot of eyeballs. I've never been able to do it, so
Right. And neither have I, Dave. And actually, that's
You
I've
need to be more controversial, David.
Right.
I need to be loud and
Yes.
proud. Yeah, that's right.
I can't tell you, Andy, how often I have thought about like, I'm the raucous rabbi. Like, I don't know. I want to like the rabbi who swears. Like every other word is a swear or something. I don't. But you're right. I mean, so what's interesting to me about that is that the Tom Brokaws they didn't do that, right? They didn't need to do that. Is that what it takes in this new media
Well, it is.
landscape to get the
You
eyeballs?
just scroll through YouTube and look at the faces on the freeze frames, right, and the poster images, and it's all outrage. It's all surprise. It's all shock.
These are all outrage
because
machines, right?
People want to have a feeling about something. They don't want information. They want to have an experience with Marcus Brownlee. They might not even agree with him. They might be a Google fan and he's talking about Apple, but they'll still watch him because
But
he's a very
he's
entertaining guy.
But he's
But
actually,
it depends, Dave.
But he's
on-
a good storyteller.
yeah.
And it depends on what the YouTube algorithm has decided that you want. So if you are always looking at the shocked ones, that's what you're going to see.
That's true.
On
Also.
the other
Yeah.
hand, look at recipes, look at maps, look at how the states were formed, informational stuff. I don't get very many shocked pictures in my YouTube feed just because that's not what I'm into.
You know,
I
Mark,
got an ad for a telescope, and I don't really have an interest in having a telescope, but it's because I'm connected to a fellow in another city who just got himself a telescope. So they know that he and I know each other. They know that we're both in the same age group and income bracket. And so Dave might also be a customer for this telescope.
right.
And it's the same model that he has. And that's how I knew, oh, yeah, it's my friend. But he doesn't know he's the vehicle for that ad.
You know, Marcus
doesn't know.
Brownlee is actually a really good example of a non-shock jock. They used to be called shock jocks, right? A non-shock, you know, sort of podcaster. He, Andy Lehman, like there are people out there making content and podcasts and media that isn't all about shock and awe. But I agree with you that I mean, by and large, that's where the money is. Go ahead, Lois. I'm sorry.
So I would like to shift our discussion just a little bit and talk about
Okay, but we only have a minute and a half left, so shift quickly.
how we got from old media, newspapers and television, to new media, Facebook and Twitter, to what the heck is going on, media? And
That's a whole day.
But it's shifting so fast. And my theory is that the people who are looking at the media and saying, now that was the generation 5 years ago, I'm going to hit the target now, I'll make something different. And so I think those alternative medias are happening boom, 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 because people want to always have the latest and newest thing.
When can we drop the new media label? And
Yeah, exactly. It's not new media anymore.
It's
We're
not new.
25 years into this.
It never was new. Yeah, it's old
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
No.
I'm saying that the new media has become old, and there's a lot of alternative media that I've never heard of.
But
and
the difference is that there used to be special. It had to be curated by a producer or someone who was like in media. Now anyone with a camera is a producer. So that's a shift, and that's very different.
Andy, can I ask you a question? So if this isn't new media, what's next?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know that it is. I think it's just, I like to just call it media, because I think it's just, you've always had, media has always been evolving, right? I mean, you had printing press, and then you had radio, and then you had TV, and then you had the internet. Like, it's always evolving. So if we're going to call something like it's always new, it's always been new.
So what's
So
next
I
in
think
the
it just
evolution?
continues to evolve.
What's coming next?
I'll give you one.
What?
Experience media.
Yep.
They're going to give us experiences.
What?
Yeah,
Give
I
me-
agree with
The
that.
Vision Pro is the foreground of that. You're going to
Really?
put things on your face for an experience, and then you'll take them off
Oh,
again, like you
come
do when you
on.
turn off your
But
TV.
I'm not going to strap
But you see
something
that
on
in
my
live
face.
in
Sure you
live
will.
spaces too. You see that
Yeah.
in things like the Van Gogh exhibit, the two traveling shows, the Van Gogh things where you go in and you have an experience, or the Sphere. So
Yes.
you're seeing that in live
Animatronic
production as well.
dinosaurs. Yeah. No. It all
And
has to
not
be alive and
everyone-
moving and freaky. Yeah.
Not everyone will like it. Not everyone will want it. Not everyone will do it. There are people who still drive buggies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
live in one of those communities. So
I don't see that as what's going to be new media, because I think that's asking way too much of the consumer. I have to get out of my bed. I have
We
to
all
put on
just sat
clothes.
here and
I have
talked
to
about
go
the
somewhere. I have
hours
to
we
do
spent in front of
something.
Tom Brokaw
Absolutely.
and all that time,
No.
and the magazines we used to sit for an hour and read a
I
magazine.
understand that.
And this time is coming back, where
The
you will
Sears
sit still
catalog was
and
my
experience
best
something.
friend for years.
Yes.
I love the Sears
I love
catalog.
TV Guide as much as I love TV.
The dream comes out of you when you
I'm
read
just
the,
not sure
the
that we have the patience for
catalog.
that anymore. I'm just not
but
sure that we do.
when the experience is
Some
better than real, you'll have the time for
Yeah.
it.
some people will take the time, other people will say it's not worth my time, and
Mhm.
that's where we end.
And the same with the
We
internet.
began.
We're wasting a
People
lot
are
of time on the
individuals.
internet.
Huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Joe Kelly says that Disneyland is experience media now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But Disneyland was always experience
Right.
media.
Experience media. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the
It was.
happiest place on earth. So it
Absolutely.
has to be a good experience every
Yeah.
day.
I've been, living in Florida. I've been there a few times. Not so happy all the time.
That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Hey,
guys.
David, what are we going to talk about next time?
I have
Do we
no idea.
foreshadow?
But no, but you know what? You know what? I actually have. You know what? Let me just share this with you all. Why not? Right? So, because I have been working ahead, I want to talk about video games and violence. I've never
Mhm.
played a video game in my entire life, so I'll just sit here listening. But that's
Go
one
play
of the
Zork
topics.
this week.
Mhm.
I want to talk about something else that came up in our Discord. By the way, if any of you want to share ideas, things you'd like us to explore, head on over to the rundown.show. You can join the Discord, throw it up there. But technology's impact on transportation. I'd love to think about how not just EVs, but writ large, the idea of driverless cars, electronic vehicles, all of that is changing. I'm fascinated. Tamara, you planted in my mind, you were teaching something about the importance of Amazon reviews on
yeah.
purchasing. So I want to talk about technology, how it's changing business, how it's changing consumer behavior. I've got something on social media and mental health. I've so much. There's so much to talk about.
I love it.
And I love
I'm here for it.
talking about it with all of you. I'm so grateful.
We'll run it
Lois,
down.
Dave, Andy,
We'll run
Tamara.
it down.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank all of you for watching and being a part of this little experiment. We will see you next Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Rundown. Bye.